We're sharing
We're
AirPods.
sharing AirPods. It is really windy here. We are still in this place where we've parked Dauntless. Welcome. This is our YouTube live. We're about an hour and a half outside of Lima, Peru, waiting on our. Oh, how do I hear that?
Is it because it's on your computer?
Oh no.
Turn off the light.
All right.
Where's our chat?
Sorry about that. Can you guys hear us?
My head. For some reason, we're hearing like
All right. So give us a like or a thumbs up if you can hear us. Right. Hey everybody, can you guys hear us? Somebody tell. Oh, okay. Alan said yes. This isn't working. I've got to take these out.
Yeah, I think
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
have
have
to
to take
take
out
these
the
AirPods out.
AirPods.
Yeah, that's me. I broke it, Dan. All right. All right. Can you guys hear us?
I'm sure they can.
All right. Here we go. All right. So, like I was saying, we're about an hour and a half out of Lima right now, where we're parked waiting for Dauntless to get our paperwork lifted so we can get out of here. We've been here for 18 days waiting on the paperwork, and it has been a nightmare with the Peruvian government. But the other day I did a live. It went really well. I told Brittany about it. She's like, that's awesome. So I was like, hey, let's do a Q&A. We sent out a bunch of questions. You guys have brought questions in. And so if you're tuning in right now and you're just tuning in, you haven't asked your question, go ahead and put it in the comments. Brittany, you'll have to kind of read them to make sure we got them. And we'll get to them as soon as we can. But we have some that were already sent to us that we're going to start with. The first one is this. It comes from YouTube from Mitch Yuck. And I know Mitch is on here. He says, I love Dauntless. What a great vehicle. Is he holding up to the challenges as you expected? And are there any changes or improvements that you'd like to make now that you've got a good chunk of your journey under your belt?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is that we still love Dauntless. We're so glad that we chose this vehicle, and being completely honest and transparent, there are no major changes that we would make to Dauntless.
No, we've been on the road for 2.5 years now in Dauntless, putting him through the harshest conditions, driving up to the wheel wells in water, getting stuck in mud in Nicaragua, going through a hurricane in Costa Rica, a tornado in Honduras, all kinds of crazy stuff. And he has performed really well. The only change that I would make personally is that there have been a couple times that I wish I had rear lockers. Now, Dauntless's trim is a Sport S with the max tow package, and so it's the lowest level trim, but it doesn't have lockers. I could have added lockers. I should have added lockers on the rear, not the front. So that's the answer to your question, Mitch. I hope that helps. The next question comes from Facebook. It's from Suzanne Stoner Wingarden, who we love very much. She said, what is your biggest, most memorable pleasure so far, and what is your biggest fear?
So my biggest fear is that Eric would decide that he doesn't want to do this anymore. And it's a true fear. And my biggest pleasure, which I think is the same for both of us, right, is our time in interior Mexico.
Yes, yes. You guys, for those of you in the United States, you guys are so blessed. Mexico is just south of the border. You guys can overland down there. You can drive down there. It's super easy. Don't be a bit afraid of it. Just do your due diligence. Feel free to ask us how we can help you to figure out how to navigate that, but get down there. Did you realize it's actually shorter to drive into La Huasteca Potosina in Mexico, which is like a tropical paradise, than it is to drive across the state of Texas? So you're without excuse. Like, just go down there and do it. It's so easy to do, and it's so awesome. It's so much fun. As far as my biggest fear, I don't really live in fear. I don't really have them in that way, so I don't really have any. I don't have any fears about this trip. Okay, next question. Let's see, have any come in? Okay, good. Next question is also from YouTube. Jonesing for Z's asks, how does vehicle insurance work? Do you need to get coverage at each border, or is it usually only liability?
So almost every country that we've been to requires insurance by law. However, they do only require liability insurance, and that includes Mexico. So not only that, But with the exception of Mexico, it is financially impossible for us to get comprehensive coverage that covers Dauntless. We would practically have to be millionaires to sustain that over
or have a lot more patrons, so you guys join our Patreon.
over a trip this long. So yeah, if we get into an accident, we are not covered. Only the other person is covered, but we knew that going into this trip.
And if you've watched any of our videos where you see us driving through these countries and the conditions that we drive in, driving a vehicle like this with zero insurance on the vehicle itself, it's a little nerve-wracking at times, and that's just an honest fact. But it would cost us about $5,000 a month roughly to have this vehicle comprehensively covered in other countries, and then who knows how good that coverage would even be. So the answer to that question is yes, you need liability in most countries. And by the way, you can buy those usually right at the border of the country you're crossing into, or via WhatsApp through an agency. So they make it pretty easy.
All that information is usually on iOverlander, or we just talk to other people in the Facebook groups to find out.
All right, I haven't seen much chat. Are you guys still with us? You still catching everything we're saying? So, all right, let us know so that we know that this is still live and that we're there, because we're in Peru.
We always have technical difficulties when we try and do a live.
And we have no idea if this thing is going. All right, there's Mitya. Thank you so much. All right, so this is just a quick refresh for anybody who's just logged in. We're doing a live Q&A right now from Lima, Peru, where we drove our Jeep Gladiator 2. If you guys have any questions that come up along the way, please, please, please ask us those questions. We have a list of questions, but we want to prioritize your questions for those of you who joined the live. I see one from Alan, so I'm going to answer that right now. Alan Downey's asking, are we planning to be at any of the expos this year? This is 2024, so the answer to that question is yes, tentatively. Okay, so what we've committed to, Alan, is the biggest Overland event of the year is Overland Expo West in Flagstaff, Arizona. It takes place, I think, the third weekend of May every year. And we have talked to the folks at Overland Expo who've invited us and given us carte blanche to come and speak, that we would try and be there every even year. So 2024, 2026, 2028, along this global journey, we plan to fly back, be in Flagstaff, Arizona, and speak live at that event, but it would only be the one event. So that's kind of where that's
well
at.
And the caveat is every time we fly out, we have to A, have a major international airport that we have access to, and B, be able to leave our vehicle in country legally, since it's a foreign plated vehicle, and C, have a secure place to leave the vehicle. And for those of you who have been following our journey here in Peru, we have been having the most difficult time getting back on the road. We've literally been at this mechanic shop for almost 3 weeks waiting for our documentation to get reinstated so that we can drive legally. So when it's this hard, it is really like, it makes me not want to do this anytime soon, just being totally honest. So we will see how it turns out.
All right, so the next question, DL Tebow asks, what is the country you're most excited to get to? I will tell you that Mexico is hands down our favorite. That stands for Brittany, Caspian, and myself.
But that's in the past.
But that's in the past. I am most looking forward to Argentina.
I'm the same. I think Eric's looking forward to it because of steak.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to it because of wine, and also because of how beautiful it looks. And just, we have a bunch of friends who are there now or have been there recently, and all their posts on social media are amazing and make me really excited.
All right, Eric Selly asks, when are you coming to Europa?
So I'm gonna estimate 4 years from now.
So just so you know, our plan right now, once they reinstate our tip and we can drive out of here, is to continue heading south. We might cut east and then south, but we're heading south. We're going to get to Ushuaia, the very bottom of the world, the furthest south you can drive on a habitable continent. And then we're going to turn around and go back up. And I'm going to answer Zachary's question. We're going to go back up to Brazil. We're going to just dip ourselves into the southern part of Brazil, come back down to Montevideo, and then go to Africa. So Africa is the next continent that we're looking at. We're going to do a little bit of Africa, as much as we can with the climate there, and then we're going to go into Europe. So it's going to be a little while. All right, now I want to get to another question here, just because we've got some here. We're doing our best to answer these, but I want to be respectful of people also that ask questions. So Jeff Kaiser from Facebook asks, my family and I are interested in overland travel internationally. A few questions that always come up for us. Challenges traveling in a country or region where you don't speak their language. Also, being unfamiliar with an area, are there any safety concerns? So the first one we want to talk about is language barrier. Okay, Now, Google Translate is your friend. There's nothing you cannot do pretty much in any country in the world if you're using Google Translate, and you can download the language packs for each country that you're going into, so you don't even need internet. But Brittany and I were talking about this as we were thinking about the live, and she brought up a really good point that has to do with relationships.
I think the biggest challenge to not speaking the language is that you're not able to go deeper with people and build deeper relationships. So can you do everything you need to do with Google Translate? I would say 100% you can, but when you really want to get to know somebody, sometimes it's even not just the language, it's also the cultural differences too. Some things don't translate, and so that part can be difficult.
As far as being unfamiliar with an area, knowing when rainy season is critically important. You have no idea. The road conditions here can be completely wiped out by a rainy season that you're not expecting. It's really hard. When we were in Central America, if you go back and watch our videos, we spent 7 months in straight rain. Like, it did not stop raining every single day for 7 months, and we lived outside with a then 6-year-old, right? 5-year-old. 5-year-old. So that can be really, really hard. But yeah, check out when rainy season is in the area that you're going into. And as far as safety concerns, my recommendation is, number one, like I said earlier, don't be a bit afraid to try this type of journey if it interests you. Talk to people like us who have done it. Spend some time getting to know us, picking our brains. We're happy to help. But also talk to the locals once you're down here on your planned routes. They will tell you what's good, what's not good. And lastly, never, ever, ever drive at night. And I don't say that for bad actors. I say that because the road conditions here are not something that we're used to back home. There are so many times where I've been driving and I've literally had to slam on the brakes because of an axle size pothole or a tope the size of a mountain that's a speed bump, or something crazy, some donkey crossing the street, or chicken, sheep.
Child.
You'll see sheep in the next video, the video that goes up tomorrow. So never, ever, ever drive at night. All right.
We've got a couple destination suggestions.
Okay.
Mount Fitzroy in Patagonia and Iguazu Falls, which I think is on the border of Brazil and Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. Those are both on our radar for sure.
We're actually staying right now in this place, and we apologize if it's windy. Like I said, this is live. We're in Peru in this little place. But where we're parked, there's actually 3 Brazilian families that are overlanding, and they're here with us, and we've just had a wonderful, wonderful time getting to know them, getting to meet them, and they've been telling us all about their country. So we're super excited to visit Brazil. I know you're down there, Hernandez. For those of you who don't know, Hernandez used to work for me in the Coast Guard, and he told me I got to say his name just like I used to when I was his chief. All right. The next question comes from YouTube via Nate A8405, and Nate A, or Natia, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, asks, how often, if ever, do you say, let's just go rent a real house, like Airbnb or equivalent, just for a change of pace and a shower?
Yeah, I think the answer is there's no specific time. It has everything to do with how much we've been driving, how fast we've been driving. The weather is a really big thing. So if we're too hot, or it's too humid, or it's rainy, or it's too cold, those are all things that make us want to find some walls. But what I figured from this time, because this is the longest that we've ever been camped in one place out of this Jeep. It's been almost 3 weeks. Tomorrow it'll be 3 weeks. What I've learned is that it's not being in the Jeep that makes me crave Airbnb life. It's actually driving too much and a fast pace of travel, because I love being in the Jeep and it works really well. We have everything that we need. So that's something that I've learned recently.
Right, and what I wanted to share is that, you know, for us, it has a lot to do with just when we feel like it, because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you guys are new to our channel, we're attempting to drive around the world. We think it's going to take us 10 to 15 years to complete. We're only 2.5 years in, just shy of 2.5 years in. So we've got a long ways to go. And I think sometimes we lose our overlanding cred when we're in a hotel or in an Airbnb. But this is not a vacation. This is life, right? And so we still have things that we need to do, like go to the doctor, go to the dentist. Brittany had a surgery in Bogota where we were in an Airbnb for 2.5 months, right? Because we needed a place for her to rest and recuperate. So this is lifestyle for us. This is not like we're just blazing through. You'll see some of these folks, and nothing against them, but you'll see some of these folks on YouTube that are driving around the world or driving the Pan American. and they'll do it in like 5 months down the Pan American, and they'll do an entire drive around the world in a year and a half to 2 years. That's not us.
Well, not only that, but we're about to celebrate 10 years of full-time travel. So not only have we taken 2.5 years since leaving the United States, but before that, we had 7.5 years on the road. So we are just kind of in this full immersion, like this is life for us, and we are trying to make it another decade at least. And so that really changes the calculus for us.
Right.
So we have some more questions that have come in
All
here.
right, Zachary Jones says, how much driving per day is too much, and how much time is too long in one place? I'll tackle the first one, you tackle the second one. How much driving per day is too much? Zachary, you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but if I were to try and drive about 30 miles from here into Lima, it would take me an hour and a half from where I am right now.
Truth.
So the traffic is insane here in the city, and the road conditions are bad, and you'll hear a lot of horns probably. It's just insanity here driving. And so how much is too much? Typically, when we're not in a major city, we don't like to drive more than about 4 hours. 5 is very tops.
I was going to say that your sweet spot is 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours is ideal.
2.5 hours is like where we arrive and you're not just exhausted out of your mind.
Right. It's stressful. It is stressful to drive here. You've got people lane splitting. You've got people just cutting in front of you. There really are no rules. It's kind of like the Wild West, and whoever's the most assertive gets to go.
Yeah, and the cops do nothing.
No.
So it could be just complete chaos, everything a mess, and the cops just like either look the other way or drive right through.
Yeah.
So it's just a completely different culture. How much time is too long in one place? It 100% just depends where we are. We spent 45 days in Guanajuato, Mexico, and we were sad to go. We weren't ready to go. Whereas here, I mean, I think like 3 days is about all that we really wanted to
Maybe
stay.
2. Yeah. So, okay. So Eric Seeley says, I hope you'll visit East Africa once you are there. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. We're actually planning on going up the eastern side of Africa. We don't know yet. That's a continent away, so it's really not on our radar. What we plan to do is once we get into South Africa, which is where we plan to ship to, we'll talk to our friends at Alucab, who are one of our sponsors, and we'll talk to them about what we should explore and the routes we should take, because they have contacts all over the country, all over the continent, I should say. All right, Mitch says, what is the average temperature in Peru at the moment? I keep a daily journal. The average temperature is usually around 83 at the high and about 68 at the low currently.
It feels a lot hotter though. Like
Yeah.
usually this time every day, I'm like dying. It's so hot.
And there's New Horizons Overland. I just want to give a shout out to my man, John Jacobs. We love you. Semper Paratus to you too. He's one of our patrons and a long time friends of ours. Thank you for being with us always, my friend. All right, let's see. Dibs on camping with you whenever you get to Israel. Dude, you couldn't even make it to St. Louis. I don't even want to hear about you going to Israel.
Leave him alone.
All right. Quick refresh for anybody joining us. We are in Peru. We drove here from Peru. We're driving around the world. We're Eric and Brittany, and with our son Caspian, we are attempting to drive around the entire world. And if you have questions, post them in the comments. That's what we're here for today. The next question comes from YouTube, where Gabriel Rosales 4699 asks, how do you deal when getting sick and having to get a doctor?
The short answer is that you go to the doctor. And I know that for people in the United States, it just feels so foreign. Like we have a picture in our heads that isn't always accurate to reality, but there are quality doctors here, quality medical care. There's a pharmacy on almost every corner, so many pharmacies. And I have had surgery. I've spent an overnight in a hospital in Bogota, Colombia. It was a beautiful hospital. I received excellent care. The food was actually good.
I offered to get her stuff from a restaurant. She's like, no, this is great right here.
No, I really enjoyed the food in the hospital. Granted, I was on some pain medication, but yeah. And also in Nicaragua, I got the most sick that I think I've ever been. I actually had a house call from a doctor. He wrote me a prescription. Eric went to the pharmacy, got it filled, and that was that.
And just so you guys know, the doctors here, there's no wait. Like you literally just call the doctor and say, hey, like I need to get in, and they bring you straight in.
That's also, I think, our privilege too, because a lot of times there's public healthcare that's covered by the government,
Right.
and there's private healthcare, and we're able to afford private healthcare,
True.
and that's why it's super high quality and there isn't a wait.
But it's also very inexpensive. So the surgery that Brittany had, we were looking at it back in the States. I think it would have been like $90,000 in the States or something like that, all things in with the anesthesiologist, the overnight room, all that stuff. What did it end up being?
It was less than $3,000.
There you have it. All right. Do we have any more questions on here before we
Yes,
go?
we do, but y'all have been busy. So.
No, that's good. We love the comments. Keep them coming.
All right, Ryan.
Ooh. Ryan just asked a question that might take us a while to answer, but it's good, and we want to talk about this.
So Ryan asked, how do we stay on top of Caspian's education? So we are following a model called unschooling, which is child-led education without curriculum. So we're following Caspian's interests and we're bringing in all the traditional subjects to support him in his learning. I was homeschooled from grades 1 to 12 before I went to university. So thankfully I have a lot of experience with this. And I was actually just on the X Overland podcast, if you look that up, and if you go to minute 55 or so, that's when my segment starts, and I take a really deep dive into Caspian's education. It's a very non-traditional philosophy, but I really explain how we're doing it and what it looks like. So if you're really curious, go to the X Overland podcast and check that out.
And just to kind of explain it very quickly for you, to give you an example, we were walking through the cloud forest of Costa Rica. Caspian saw a row of leafcutter ants coming down the tree with leaves on their backs, and he was super fascinated by them. He's like, Daddy, Daddy, look. And so we started talking about ants. We started talking about exoskeletons. We started talking about the fact that they can carry 10 times their weight. And he said, well, how much could I carry if I was an ant? And I said, well, how much do you weigh? He said, 40 pounds. I said, well, what's 10 times 40? He said, 400. And then he looked at me in shock and he said, I could carry 400 pounds? If I was an ant? And I was like, yes. And so he was really excited about it. We came back. You can draw an ant. You can count the number of legs. You can write the word ant, do handwriting, vocabulary, reading, math, science, biology, all from something that your son or daughter is interested in. And because of that, because it's led by them, they're really excited about it, really into it. So that's kind of
it's a really integrated way to learn. You don't have all your subjects in silos. You're making connections with everything in the world, which I think will really help him going into adulthood.
All right, somebody cue the Barry White music. This is the question that nobody ever wants to ask, but people should ask, because I get asked this question all the time privately. And that is from Facebook. Our friend Kristen Zerpoli asks, I'm not asking for graphic details, or I'm trying to be too personal or disrespectful, but how do you and the missus maintain romance and intimacy in your marriage when sharing the space with a youngster in tight quarters? So if anybody's got the Barry White music, go ahead and play it now. Look, here's the deal.
I'm too young to know what that is.
Here's the deal. We have a very healthy, intimate relationship, and we're together fairly frequently. I'll just leave it at that. Having said that, we have two separate sleeping spaces inside Dauntless.
Bunk beds, if you will.
Right. We're up top in the tent. Caspian sleeps in the bottom half, and we wait till he's asleep. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
Hope that answers the question. All right. Do we have any other questions that have come through here? All right. All right.
No, you skipped one.
Did I skip one?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Induction says, when are you guys driving to Nepal? If we drive through Nepal, it will be 7-8 years from now. That's going to be towards the end, because we're going to drive across Asia west to east and then finish up in Australia. I would love to go to Nepal.
Yeah, and a lot of this, of course, depends on world climate, right? I mean, there are countries, we just drove through Ecuador right before Peru, and right now there's all kinds of issues with overlanders driving through Ecuador. So, things change within the world all the time, and so we kind of play it by ear as we go, but we kind of just have our general route.
You guys should look up this couple on Instagram called Camper and Cook. They're in India right now, and everything that they're sharing is absolutely amazing. I love what they're doing in their travels right now, and hardly anyone is following them or knows who they are. So highly recommend.
All right, so Shuck Fam asks, how is Caspian handling the pause in the travel? Look,
he's thrilled.
He loves it. He's got two Brazilian little girlfriends here, Maria and Manu, and they play all day long every day. I've been trying to get Caspian to like watch BattleBots with me, which we used to do every single day, and he's like, Daddy, I want to play with my friends. So he's happy.
Yeah, and he claims that the best coffee shop in the world is here, so it's about a 15-minute walk, and we go every other day. It's like my only oasis and highlight, and he loves it. He gets jugo de naranja and a brownie every time we go, so he's a happy boy.
All right, let's see. So Frank Gillespie asks, Eric, you and I had a conversation a while ago on Clubhouse. For those of you who don't know, Clubhouse is an app that's kind of like a podcast, except for everybody's there at once, and it's kind of like this, except for it's only audio.
I would describe it as an audio chat room.
Yeah, and I actually really enjoy Clubhouse. He asked, do you plan on using that platform again? It's possible. I mean, the reality is there just wasn't that many people who wanted to talk about overlanding, and I do it as a lifestyle. So I think if there was a robust and active group in overlanding, that I would be happy to join that and speak whenever the host would like me to speak, because I really enjoy the app, but I don't know that I'll be using it anytime soon. Eric Selle asks, when is your next video coming out? Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Normally we try and release one every 2 weeks at minimum. Every now and then you get one the very next week. Our videos are always released on Sunday. So we released one last Sunday, which if you haven't watched that, we go into a 3,000-year-old temple deep underground in the Andes, and it was incredible. And this next one is going out tomorrow.
And if you want to get them early, then you should join our Patreon,
Yep.
because as soon as they're finished, they go up on Patreon. So those people have already seen it.
Yes. All right. Gregory Bryce says, what are your pros and cons about living out of the canopy camper full-time?
This is such a hard one because we have been on the road for so long. I mentioned a little while ago, if you weren't here yet, that February 21st is our 10-year nomadiversary. So living on the road, living out of a vehicle is normal for us now. I think for the canopy camper, our interior living space is very limited. We sleep in there and we can sit and hang out if the weather is really bad, but normally we'll be outside like we are right now. So that's the issue, is if it's really hot, really cold, or it's raining, it just is not as much fun.
Yeah, and a lot of people think we live out of the canopy camper, and we do. I mean, it is our home, but what I try and remind people is that the canopy camper and Dauntless itself is a means to an end, right? So when you really think about it, I think in the overlanding space, especially in the United States, it's very gear focused, very heavy in what gear are you using, what axles do you have, what tires are you running, and all that. But it's really about the journey. And I know that's cliche, but it really is. Like, we drive in Dauntless, we sleep in Dauntless, and we typically eat outside of Dauntless. But other than that, we're really not in Dauntless. We're either out exploring our surroundings, or out hanging out outside, or spending time talking to locals, or getting to know other people, or doing activities. But we don't really live like you would in a house. Like, we don't come home from work and go into the house and sit there and watch TV. That's just not something that's part of our lives.
Yeah, we picked this rig really purposely based on our first 2 trips to Mexico and our experience there, and we're really happy with it because it fits the way that we travel. So where we're camped right now, there's a couple from Germany in a van, there's a couple from Austria in like a traditional Class C motorhome, there's another couple in an SUV with a rooftop tent, there's a truck with a truck camper, and there's a giant Mercedes bus that's kind of schooly style, where they've built out the interior themselves. And when I look at those big rigs, of course I see the advantages to living the RV life. I've lived it. We lived in RVs for 7 years. I get what that looks like, but it's not what we want down here. We want to be able to take any road that we want to take, and we want to be able to go on narrow cobblestone streets into the middle of towns. And those are 2 things that are really important to us. And so for us, the pros outweigh the cons.
And we wanted to be able to design an overland vehicle that we could put inside a shipping container to ship across the world's oceans, and in this case across the Darien Gap. If you missed that video, we actually have 2 videos, one putting Dauntless into a container in Panama City, and then another retrieving him out of the port in Cartagena, Colombia. And we talk about that entire process and what that looks like, and to be able to put Dauntless inside a sealed container where they lock it, seal it, nobody's going to touch it until we're physically present, is a very good thing.
And if anyone wants to do a deeper dive on why we chose this setup, we have a full article. So just send me a DM and we can get you the link to that.
All right, next question. I want to get to one of these up here. Our friends at Outliers Overland, they're dear friends of ours who are very experienced global overlanders themselves, have a great YouTube channel, Outliers Overland. Check them out. They asked, hey, we've never been able to imagine for full-time travel having to live outside when the weather sucks. How do the three of you manage it? And do you think a bigger camper would be more sustainable? Even living inside our camper can be miserable when the weather sucks. And Brittany kind of just talked about this, but what I wanted to say on this regard is it's sustainable. I mean, we've been doing it for...
Yeah, I think we've proven that it's sustainable.
We've been doing it for 2.5 years. And so it's very doable. It's different for everybody. And ultimately, we just make decisions that are best for our family. If we're getting tired, we'll get an Airbnb for a month.
Or we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
We do that too. So sometimes we've gone to really high elevation and we love it. It's beautiful, but it's really cold.
Yeah.
So we don't stay there very long because it's too cold for us.
And Karmar, kind of on this topic, asked from Facebook, Karmar asked, is Caspian's bed going to fit him when he gets taller? And if not, what are the options in Dauntless?
Caspian's going to be a big boy because he already is, so it will not fit him when he is 18. We're pretty clear on that. However, I lay down in his bed sometimes and it can work for much longer. When he's older, he can have a hammock or a ground tent. I don't care, whatever he wants to do.
And the reality is I spent a lot of time on ships in the United States Coast Guard and lived in what they call a coffin rack, and the space inside the habitat of Dauntless is larger than my sleeping quarters, and I was 20 years old. So Caspian's going to be fine for a while. Although he's probably going to be a lot taller than I am.
Yeah. So DP asked, Eric, are you sponsored by Cool? I love their stuff.
DP, we are sponsored by Cool. Cool has been behind us, I want to say, since 2019.
Yeah, really early.
A really, really long time. Super thankful
when
to
we
Cool
were
Clothing.
talking a big story.
Yeah.
But we hadn't left yet.
They believed in us. They believed in us, though. They believed that we were going to do what we said we were going to do. And I got to tell you something about Cool brand clothing. It lasts. It lasts forever. Like
yeah, I'm wearing it too.
We can't be hard enough on this gear, and I'm not saying this because they're our sponsor. My wardrobe was already filled with Cool Clothing before they ever knew we existed. It's just really super high quality stuff. I'm thankful that I get it now from them. But yeah, highly recommend Cool Clothing across the board. It's probably 90% of what we have inside.
And Hyla's here. Hi, Hyla.
Hello, Hyla.
Do you want to answer Dan's question?
All right.
Or?
Yeah, we can do that. So Dan DL Tivo says, if you've seen it, what do you think about Epic Family Road Trip's new rig made by Ross Monster, if I recall correctly? Do you believe you'll outgrow Dauntless as sea grows? All right. So the answer is, I love Epic Family Road Trip. They're awesome people. We know them personally. I have not seen their new rig.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with
comment
it either. But will we outgrow Dauntless?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think there's a day. I think there comes a day when, depending on where we're going or what we're doing, we might decide that Dauntless is not the right tool for our family at that time. And remember, this journey is about the three of us. Dauntless is a means to an end. Now, we're very attached to him, just like we're attached to our Jeep back home called Guardian. We love both these rigs. They've been very, very good to us. But at the end of the day, it's about our journey, not about the equipment that we use. So, all right. Do we have another one here, or do you want me to go up here?
You can go out there.
All right. So Peter Rossi on Facebook asks, how do you find the places to do the maintenance on your rig in other countries? And the answer to that question predominantly is by talking to other overlanders or going to the iOverlander app, which is highly used down here in Latin America. You can see pins for mechanics everywhere, see recent reviews. There's also WhatsApp groups that we're part of where we can ask, hey, has anybody had some mechanical work done in Lima or in Cuenca or in any major city? And we'll usually get some very quick feedback.
So Eric was asking if people can call us and say hi.
Can one call you and say hi one day? That would be cool. Eric, we'd love to receive a call from you. So honestly, and I'm not just plugging this, you guys, Patreon is a huge part of our life because, and some of our patrons are here right now. New Horizons Overland is one of them. Hyla's one of them.
The Tebows.
The Tebows are one of them.
Family.
The Shook family. I mean, there's a lot of them on here. We do this kind of stuff where we talk one-on-one with our Patreons all the time. We'd encourage you to do that. Go behind the scenes with us, even if it's at the lowest dollar level, that's fine. We would just like to have that because the community is important to us. The one thing that's the hardest part about this journey, it's not the cartels, it's not the border crossings, it's not anything that you might think. It's the fact that everyone we ever say hi to, we say goodbye to. And it's usually, we only get to know them for a few days. and the goodbyes are always hard. And so we can stay in touch via video, but we don't get to maintain those relationships. And so unlike you, we don't have that friend that we can call up, as you said, Eric, and say, hey man, I've had a rough day, you want to go grab a pizza? Or, you know, or Brittany can call up one of her girlfriends and say, hey, do you want to go share a bottle of wine? We don't have that in our world, because, and it's by choice, but we always say goodbye to our friends. And so Patreon allows us to have this consistent community that's the same country after country, continent after continent, and we have a lot of private conversations there. So we would encourage you to consider that.
Mitch, thanks y'all for your patience because we're behind on the comments. The name of the couple in India is Camper and Cook, and they're on Instagram, and they're awesome.
DL Tebow asks, would you ever own a Toyota? Is there a button that we can like delete somebody from our feed?
Come on, babe. Toyota makes a good rig.
I'm kidding. No, Toyotas are actually extremely great rigs, except for Dance, which is broken down right now. But other than that, Toyotas are great rigs, and they're worked on a lot down here in South America, much more than a Jeep Gladiator
Yeah,
is.
that's the big benefit, is that people see a Toyota and they're much more familiar with it, and that's an advantage that we don't have.
Oh, look at that, Mitch Yuck. I'm Leslie on Patreon.
Oh,
I didn't know
that's
that. Hey,
awesome.
Mitch Yuck, thank you so much for being part of that.
Sometimes it's hard for us to make those connections because people use their real name on Patreon, but they have a different screen name, and so sorry,
Yeah.
but thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, for anybody interested, just go to Hourless Life. Just search for Hourless Life Patreon, and you'll get to us there. All right.
Okay,
So
we're caught up on YouTube.
all right, this is the final refresh. If you've just joined us midstream, mid-live stream, we're in Peru. We drove here from the United States. We're trying to drive around the world. We have a 7-year-old son. We've been at it for 2.5 years, and we are here taking your questions. So if you have them, please drop them in the comments. This is your last chance, because when we're done with these few questions and what's on the screen, we are going to end this live, and thank you for being with us. So with that said, none on here. I am going to go up to here. Lorena Perfect from Facebook writes, hey Eric, we're driving the Pan Am Highway right now. We're in Guatemala, and we love Guatemala, but we're heading into El Salvador. What are some of your favorite things to do and see in El Salvador?
I really enjoyed El Salvador.
I did too.
We only spent 2 weeks there, but it was awesome.
Yeah, so first of all, I love to see their roads. Like after you've been driving through all of Mexico and all of Belize and all of Guatemala, and then you get into El Salvador, it's almost like driving back in the United States. The roads are paved really well, lined really well. They have shoulders. It's just
They've invested in their infrastructure a lot.
They really have, and it just kind of gives you this like breath of fresh air and this peace of mind that you're driving on something that you're not always stressed
Before
out
going
about.
into Honduras.
Yes, but there's this route called Ruta de las Flores in El Salvador, which goes up into the mountains. It's absolutely
Yeah, and
stunning.
that's the amazing thing, is that you get to go up in elevation, so it's way cooler up there than it is down on the coast, which at least when we were in El Salvador, it was one of the hottest places we were the entire trip, and I was dying.
Yes, yes, she was. If you actually go back and watch our El Salvador video, at the very beginning of that, I always do these little clips of something usually funny that happened, and Brittany's got a fan in her
I like
lap.
have this fan hiding and it's blowing on my face.
She was totally busted.
So Dan asked who dances the best, and it's Eric. There's no question.
Dan, why do you doubt a brother? I
No
keep
question.
telling you this. So for those of you who don't know, yes, we're Christians. You guys probably see that because we pray on here, and we're not asking our entire YouTube audience to be Christians, but we are. And Dan is our senior pastor. So hello, Dan. He's just busted my chops, and I had just posted in our digital church space that I was a good dancer back in the day, and so he's just trying to get at me. All right, so another question here from Facebook. Sean Kylie, I'm sorry, forgive me, Kille asks, I'm trying to decide if purchasing and having installed the Long Range America fuel tank is worth it. While I enjoy my road trips here in Europe, I know that I'll never likely be in a situation like you where you experienced in South America. Considering the fuel prices here, I know I can save a ton of euros by topping off before I cross into neighboring countries. All right, so here's the deal. Weight is a premium on any overland build, especially for long-term travel. If you are carrying extra fuel, that is a whole lot of weight.
And the tank itself.
We carry 17 extra gallons of fuel in our Long Range America tank, and we are super thankful for it. It extends our range. It gives us peace of mind. and it's been great. The long range America tank has been fantastic.
But we don't keep it full. Like, we don't use it unless we need it because of how heavy the fuel is.
Right.
And even we, doing the whole Pan American Highway, don't usually need extra fuel.
Yeah, we only usually keep it about halfway or 3/4 full, depending on how far we're driving at the most. But we usually keep just a little bit there just as an emergency backup. Having said that, if I were traveling and did not need to carry that fuel because I knew that there were regular fuel stops, I wouldn't have it. And the one downside has nothing to do with the long range America tank. It's the fuel transfer pump that goes between the long range America tank and the main tank.
Yeah, long range doesn't make it.
No, but the fuel transfer pumps that you buy, they eventually fail. And so you can count on replacing those once every 1 or 2 years.
We just replaced ours for the second time.
Yes.
In 2.5 years.
We're now on our third one.
Yeah.
All right.
So John wants to know how the solar install was. This guy was a rock star with the solar panel install.
Yeah, it was a challenge. So what happened was one of our sponsors is Red Arc in Australia, and they make phenomenal electronic equipment. We're running their Red Vision system, we're running their Manager 30, and now we're running their solar panels. They were kind enough to ship us everything from Australia, if you can believe that, all the way here to Lima, Peru. We picked it up, I opened the box, and there was none of the hardware, none of the stuff that I needed to connect it with, and I think they shipped it to us during the holiday season, and they were just swamped. So bottom line is I needed to go find it. So that was really the hardest part of it, was trying to find the stuff that we needed to actually install it
because we couldn't find exactly what we needed, but we were pretty fortunate to be in Lima, because if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be in the biggest city in the country.
Yeah, so we took a cab or something, an Uber, down to a mall that's here, and they have this huge store. I can't even remember what it's called.
It looked like a Home Depot.
But it looked like their version of a Home Depot, and we were able to find nearly what we needed. So kind of this, kind of like the generic version of what we needed. And so we were able to do that. All right, couple more questions on here. This one's also about the solar panels from Facebook. Jose Vincent Hernandez. He's the guy that used to work for me. He says, I'm so curious about the solar panel and the required maintenance that comes with it. I'm sure it's a convenient energy source, but I can't help think about all the potential challenges that come with such innovations. To fully finish the thought, mobile solar panels, how and why? Look, solar panels themselves are pretty much maintenance free, other than wiping them off once they're installed and everything's connected. So that's not the issue, but I did want to say something for those of you considering solar. If you are going to add solar, you have two options. You can either have a removable solar that you carry with you, or you can have a permanently affixed solar. The problem with permanently affixed solar is that you're adding it to the top of your rig, which is increasing your height clearance and increasing the drag on your vehicle and lowering your miles per gallon. So if you're not doing this full time or for very long extended periods of time, and you have a garage, I would just recommend a removable solar panel that you can plug into your rig, put it out in the sun when you're camping.
Red Arc has solar blankets now, and people just put them across their windshields to use them.
I mean, they may look cool on a rig, but it's not worth having them permanently affixed unless you don't have a garage or you're going to be going out for a long extended period.
Well, and that goes for a lot of things, like the Alucab Canopy Camper. I mean, once it's sealed to your truck bed, you don't take it off. And so do you really want that on the back of your vehicle?
Yeah. So that's just a wise word on solar.
Hyla wants to go to Cuenca in Ecuador.
You absolutely need to go.
I still think about Cuenca.
It's a beautiful city. Beautiful city. And Dan says, Eric, is that bracelet from Peru? I love that you're collecting them. You guys, for those of you who don't know, I have a bracelet from every country that we've ever traveled through, with one exception. I don't have one for Peru. This bracelet was actually given to me by a friend, Art Sid, who's one of our patrons, the last time we were in the United States. So this is actually my USA bracelet. And as soon as I get somewhere out of here, out of this place that
if we ever leave,
I'm going to find a Peruvian bracelet to add it to my collection.
All right, Brian says we're starting our journey from Canada to Ushuaia. Yay! This summer.
Good for you.
How much time would you suggest budgeting for each of Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I got you on this. 90 days.
Well, I think he probably knows that. So we spent a bunch of time in Guatemala, which we don't regret at all, because Lake Atitlan and Antigua are two of our favorite places that we've been this entire trip. We loved them so much.
Plan on spending some time there.
We were there around May. Which
and Tikal. which is
Yeah,
incredible.
Antikal, the ruins in the north. We were there around April, May, which was a perfect time of year. We hit Antigua for Semana Santa, which was unbelievable. And we
Yep.
have a YouTube video about that. And then we did 2 weeks in El Salvador, which was a little short for me because I really liked it.
Me
but
too.
it's a super small country. And we did 2 weeks in Honduras, which I think was fine. And then we finished it out in Nicaragua.
Yeah, I would say in Honduras, plan on hitting the Copan ruins. And honestly, other than that, I would spend more time in Guatemala, a little bit more time in El Salvador, and a little bit more time in Nicaragua.
Yeah, we went up to the coast of Honduras, but in retrospect, we didn't need to do that.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So we have 2 more questions on here, and then any last minute questions on here. This is your last chance. If you have a burning question, ask it now. We're going to do 2 more here. From Facebook, Dan Vickers asks, having been on the road for so long, do you often wish for a bigger rig, more power, more torque, more payload, and more space? This is easy. The answer is no. We're really, really happy with Dauntless where we're at right now, and it's serving all of our family's needs. It was the right decision, and we're not just saying that. This is our home, right decision for where we're at right now. And then the last one I have on my list here from Facebook, Paige Hill Olivero, dear friend of ours from Texas who has hosted us in her home, writes,
Well, we were in her driveway.
right, we camped in her driveway, asks us, what would be a process for inviting friends from back home to visit us as we travel? Now, we've mentioned this a couple times, you guys, but go to our Patreon. So what we do is this. Whenever we go to a large city where we're going to spend some time in an Airbnb, like Bogota, Colombia, or Alajuela, Costa Rica, or some of these places that we've been for a month, we always try and get an Airbnb with an extra spare bedroom that is not used for any reason. And the reason that we do that is honestly to invite our family first, right? If any of our family wants to come and visit us, Brittany's parents, our big kids, anybody wants to come visit us, we tell them first. We say, hey, from these dates to this date, we're going to be here. You guys can come, fly, be with us. We've got a room for you. And then after we do that, we open it up to our patrons and we say, hey, okay, our family's chimed in. Those dates are blocked off, but we have these dates available. If anybody wants to come and join us, you guys are welcome to. And all you need to do is land in the airplane, catch an Uber to the Airbnb where we're at, and we've got a room for you. So we offer that on our Patreon. All right. And that's the last question I have here. Do we have any more here?
No, people are just talking about Reese's.
Oh, I guess then we must be done. All right. So anyway, I just want to say we love answering these questions. Thank you guys so much for being part of our community. Thank you for spending time with us and being engaged with us. We miss having this type of community, and we'd love to be a resource for anybody who's thinking about overlanding, even if it's just, you know, camping for the weekend, just getting your feet wet, just getting started, or you're really ready to start going long-term internationally, road schooling, world schooling, any topic, you guys, we are here for you. Hope you enjoyed this. And
yeah, and we have a lot of resources that we can share as well, not just interviews and podcasts that we've done, but other resources outside of us, and we would love to help in that way.
Yep. So with that said, we have another video going up tomorrow. By the way, there's 24 of you on right now. Only 8 of you have given us a like. Please give this a thumbs up if this was helpful to you. If you enjoyed it, just toss a thumbs up on there. Doesn't take you but a second, but it makes all the difference because other people will get to see these 47 minutes that we've been able to invest with you guys. They'll get to see that other people like this video. So we'd appreciate that. And with that, we will see you tomorrow in our video on our YouTube channel. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Enjoy. Thanks, guys.